Little Night Music is the third in a series of musicals written by Stephen Sondheim, directed by Hal Prince in the early 1970s, starting with Company and then Follies and then A Little Night Music. It's based on an Ingmar Bergman film, Night of the Summer Smiles, and it is about love, loss, regret, betrayal, jealousy, revenge, the human adult condition, about sort of all's fair in love and war.
It is one of Stephen Sondheim's lesser known shows. The music is absolutely beautiful, and it's just like full of so many jokes, and it's so much fun to watch.
I picked this title. It's a piece I've longed to do for many years. Is from when I first heard it. I've been lucky enough to be in the show in my past as a performer, so it holds a special place in my heart. But it requires a certain level of vocal ability, and it seemed like the perfect piece to continue the work that we've been doing with the vocal performance and theater co-majors. I don't know that they would be nearly as successful at it without it. The concentrated time just thinking about vocal production and support and chord closure and resonance and then a sort of incredible melody and harmonic score by Sondheim, but also just the lyrical lines and the elevated speech sort of calls on really trained performers. The assumption is because these are sort of elevated characters that they don't really speak to you or me. I totally understand the sort of educational value of asking our students, and they're in gorgeous costumes, right? There's these beautiful costumes that we'll have, how you have to carry yourself and what you learn as a performer, as a singer, right? But also then about how your body portrays a character. So that part of it is, it's great that we have that, but I understand how it might, in a very traditional production, seem a little put off, characters from 100 years ago and from this, well-to-do Swedish society. But I think when you strip it bare, and especially when you have young people performing it who are having to explore the faults and foibles of human beings as they grow into their own adult relationships and, are grappling with those things, it does reveal a much more common experience. In working with the performers, we've talked a lot about the flaws in these characters. There's an argument to be made, or a PhD thesis to be written about just how flawed these characters are.
It's just so strange because it's messy but beautiful. Like, everything is so messy, but it's so put together. Like, the music is just gorgeous, and I mean, all these characters, they're real, they're human. They all have flaws. Like, none of them are perfect. None of them are these like perfect characters that everyone like aspires to be like, because it's like true to the real world. No one's perfect. Everyone has flaws, and it's just, I think that's just what's beautiful about it. It's just that it's very real.
I think the most rewarding part of this process has been, for me, it's been my character work. For Carl Magnus, it has been such an interesting experience. Because I've portrayed all sorts of evil in our shows, but I don't know. There's just something so comic about him, but also real with how terrible he is.
It is a piece that makes you think about love, and that we love people in spite of their flaws. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes with a romantic love. But when you are voluntarily going into a romantic relationship, there's that level of trust that's like an eggshell. It's so easy to crack. And what happens when you've lived your life, or you're continuing to live your life, paying the price for these mistakes that you've made over the years, The grace in it is that we've sort of been talking about the fact that people make the best decisions that they can at the time they make them. That's what growth is about, right? That, you know, they may not have made the same decision today that they made 20 years ago. But there's also something sort of magical about this piece in that the stars align, if you will, and people that have had sort of momentary, moments together and then they parted have the opportunity to come back together. And by the end of the piece, spoiler alert, a sort of a family is reunited, and people that should have been together in the first place are finally together, and those sorts of things. A lot of love and forgiveness and patience and grace. So it is the human condition. You have a cast of folks from, say, 18 to 23 maybe, who are performing this piece that have characters from, say, 14 to 84. And so it gives us a plausible diversion against having to do it literally. Because sometimes, for me anyway, it's just sort of my aesthetic is that I shy away from that literalism because I can go do that in a movie, but when you're on stage, there has to be some reason, real deep reason why I need to see it live. And for me, that asking the audience to sort of lean in rather than just sort of lean back and lean in and try to put some of those puzzle pieces together is part of what makes theater so universal and live today, necessary still. My sort of constant problem as a performer was that I was never just satisfied with the perspective of what my character was. I loved knowing why the designers were doing what they were doing and made the choices they made, and the directors, and so I played Henrik, and so it was. The whole time I was doing it, all I wanted to do was see it at the same time, right? So, and I've witnessed multiple productions of it in the past. It's a very daunting piece. It requires a lot of infrastructure that we don't really have the ability to do here in a traditional sense, and so it always calls on us to be creative about the way we approach the piece. So it's sort of, as we do with a lot of our productions, we sort of stripped it bare first and said, what are the essential things that we want to do with it? And I think the sort of artistic launching point was that idea of we're caught somewhere between night and day, this constant twilight. Can we create a production that's somewhere between a concert version and a fully staged performance? Hopefully everybody will come and see the work. They'll see that there's an elevated stage, about 16 inches high, platform in the middle of the stage, and sort of dotted around that stage are a series of squares or dots or medallions, as our designer Mike Rhodes, amazing Mike Rhodes, and they've been a great tool for us to think about working sort of in straight lines and on the bias. It provided a sort of locomotion, movement language for the piece. It provided a way for us to think about because we're using a series of chairs rather than beds and sofas and, dining room tables and all sorts of things. It's it's sort of a drawing room comedy, but we're doing very simply with chairs. But this grid, if you will, helped us organize the space in a way that was a wonderful touchstone for me as a director, for our designer, but also for our performers, because then once you sort of understand that you're being supported by this grid underneath you, you feel really secure in place. Because that's the thing about thinking this kind of work, is you really have to be grounded. And so the other thing that the deck did is it gave us the ability to be two different places at the same time. So when you're up and you're down, you're in two different places. I mean, we sort of destroy that idea toward the end of the evening, but it's been wonderful to be able to have these two realities going on visually, the way that sort of theoretically we have this idea of it's a concert version, it's a staged version. So we've just tried to add that into the mix of this exploration of the work. The one element that's missing on purpose from our production is waltzing. the whole piece is written in versions of 3/4 time. And the idea behind it was that the waltz was finally that dance in Western society that finally put couples together touching, and it was scandalous at the time. And so it seemed like a great vehicle for what if you're the wrong couple together, that sort of thing. But we have, in our stripping away of it, we've opted for more points of meeting points for characters rather than the movement. We have the largest, pit, if you will, that we've had in a very, very long time. We'll have a total of 8 members of the orchestra, and the audience will see them around the stage. We're not putting up we're not trying to hide anything. We have a harp, and we have a cello, and we've got, all kinds. So, and then Jimmy will be conducting and playing from our grand piano upstairs. And then also it's provided the opportunity for our music production students to be thinking about not just miking voices, but also miking the instruments and finding the balance in that work. So, I'm excited by it. Our rehearsal process was truncated. Our college decided to move the semester dates back. So we lost 3 weeks of rehearsal. So sort of by necessity, we did not have a traditional table reading period.
From day one, we were already being given stuff from Jeff that we usually get midway through the process. We went through the blocking, and he was already helping us with our choices and acting and working with each other.
I think it's really been an opportunity for everyone to come in as prepared as possible ahead of time, and it's made for such a seamless process, despite how short it is.
Everybody had been living with the piece for several months, getting it into their voices and whatnot. And so we, out of necessity, because we only had 3 weeks to do it, we just dove into the staging. But what's interesting now is that, we were just just talking with this with my directing classes, that sometimes table work, the sort of let's talk about the play kind of work done later in the process rather than earlier in the process brings a level of illumination for actors that might be like, this isn't quite working. I wonder why it is. But now that they really, really know the text, that they can see the antecedents along the way. You remember when you said that line way back there? That's what sets the stage for this. And you just see all these light bulbs going off. Oh my gosh, didn't realize that. That I think would have been more of an academic exercise if we'd done it early. Now they really own these characters, and so it's just going to deepen their work and their sense of solidity and assurance. So it's certainly not been a traditional rehearsal process, but it's just a testament. If you have 2 weeks, it'll take you. You'll do what you can in 2 weeks. So I'm proud of everybody. And they're going to continue to grow, through the whole process. So it opens on Thursday, April 10, plays April 10, 11, 12, starting at 7:30. And then we have Sunday matinee at 2. If you've ever been in love, if you've ever made a mistake in your life, if you've ever longed for things or had questions about what your purpose is, and if you've ever been a lover of beautiful music, those are the reasons to come and invest some time with our amazing students and our, the creative team to celebrate an incredible work by an American icon, Stephen Sondheim.